For last week's speech, I basically just spoke about OPEC, which is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and how price of oil is going up and down, and how actions by OPEC has affected our country today and continues to change it. So for this week's speech, I'm basically just going to talk about hydraulic fracking and crude oil, which is all part of the petroleum industry, so to continue that speech. So there's all this new hype about the shale boom developing. Engineers are using the high-pressure steam of water and chemicals and sand to keep the layers of shale rock and to extract oil and natural gas. This is called hydraulic fracking. It's become very resourceful, but also a huge controversial issue in our time today. But how did the shale boom begin? Gregory Zuckerman decided to find out. In his latest book, Meet the Frackers, he introduces different profiles of the men that made it happen. The Huffington Post explains it's not uncontroversial environmental investigation and economical analysis, but it goes a long way toward showing how the gas grew so quickly and how some of the industry's missteps made it so controversial. The Huffington Post interviewed Zuckerman about his book and discussed how the shale boom came about. Zuckerman talks about Harold Hamm and others that were involved with the oil and gas industry. He explains that these men are somewhat heroic. There's a lot to admire about them and also a lot to criticize. Some of them, like Harold Hamm, make up to $14 billion, and they still criticize President Obama. But at the same time, most of them are geologists that were smart enough to find a way to become very, very wealthy. I do agree with Zuckerman that these men, like Harold Hamm, are going to play a really big role in society in general rather than a political role. These men already own so much and do indeed play a big role already in politics as they influence charities, but most definitely they will play a bigger role soon in our society. On the other hand, the nation's energy landscape has dramatically changed due to the production of expanding U.S. shale oil. Petroleum products have hit an all-time high, but ample supply of crude oil causes worry on the U.S. oil gut. This is all happening because of a federal ban on crude oil exports, and this was imposed after the 1973 oil embargo. This production has boomed in the U.S. due to hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling. As supply overwhelmed demand in local areas, crude oil prices became depressed relative to the international oil prices. Also, this ban results in crude flows toward relative to the international oil prices. Also, this ban results in crude flow toward higher prices. Michael D. Plant explains that when local oil sells for significantly less than international prices, an opportunity to buy low and sell high emerges. In response to such an incentive, oil has been transported toward coastal regions where refineries tend to be located. Overall, I agree that over a longer period of time, U.S. crude oil producers would receive higher prices. This is because, in response, they would produce more oil than they would have if there were a ban in the first place. With that said, the greater amounts of oil available around the world, the more gasoline and diesel would be produced. This would reduce the prices and benefit the U.S. consumers.